Okay, we're gonna get started here. Can you hear me? Welcome, Duranda. Can you hear me? Just type in the chat there if you can. That way I know you can hear me. Okay, great. I'm actually doing this live lecture outside, so you'll probably be hearing some birds chirping. Hopefully my dog won't be barking, but it's such a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh. I thought, hey, why not take the computer outside? So hopefully you can hear me really well. I'm going to turn my mic up here just in case, okay? Because it sounds a little different when you're outside versus inside. So how are you doing today? Thank you for joining me. We'll see if anybody else joins us here. Hopefully you guys had a wonderful weekend. I know it's already Tuesday, but hopefully you had a nice weekend. I know I did. I enjoyed it thoroughly. My daughter, who just ended her last day of kindergarten on Friday of last week, we celebrated that this weekend, and yeah, had some people over and had a great time. Was able to recharge and relax. Yeah, my only daughter, so it's kind of a big feat for her to be graduating kindergarten. All right, well, hopefully everybody had a good weekend. For those of you listening, thank you for listening to the recording. Like I said, every single time we record these, very important to always watch the recorded lectures if you are unable to make this live. And don't forget that there's also pre-recordings in the live session area as well that you need to also watch. So that will add to your arsenal of your weekly projects. You know, it kind of gives you some great supplemental resources and help going forward with your projects. I had a couple people, actually one person that contacted me through the grade book stating that they had a hard time going through the instructions for, I believe it was assessment 3, which was when you were fitting your type in Illustrator. If you feel like I'm going too fast, what the nice thing about the recording is, and I did let the student know, that you can go back and rewind, and I say rewind, but you can, you know, stop the recording, go back to what you missed, and do it step by step if you have 2 windows open on your screen, if you're able to do that. That way you can rewind, rewatch, and you know, go through your way as slow as you possibly need to, because I know sometimes I go fast through some of my demos, but that's a good way to do it. So if you find that, you know, I'm going too quick, that's a good way. Do a side-by-side window and go ahead and rewind what you missed. That's the nice thing about recordings. All right, so welcome to week 3. It is June 9th, Tuesday, and we're kind of at the midway point here of our mod. So we're at the almost like midterms. So, you know, just make sure that we have a new late policy in effect this mod too. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. So make sure you're getting in the work that you need to get in to me as soon as possible. If you are already communicating with me through email with maybe some issues that you're struggling with, you know, I'm more flexible with you. So make sure you're communicating with me so that I can, you know, work with you. Do you have any questions in regards to what we went over in the past 2 weeks so far? Concerns, questions? Now is the time to talk about it. And if you're listening to this recording, definitely shoot me an email. If you do, let me know what's going on. Like I said, I'm here for you guys. I want you to succeed. If you succeed, I succeed. So of course, you know, I'm trying to push you guys, but also don't feel like, you know, if you get stuck, don't feel like you can't reach out to me. I'm here to help, but I need to make sure that you're, you know, I've had students reach out and say, I can't do this. I'm confused. You know, try to be more specific about what you're confused about. Don't just vaguely, you know, email me that. I want to know that you're actually attempting the projects, and let me know specifically what you need help with so that I can help you. All right, so I'm going to take that as we're all good to go. So I'm going to go forward here with our learning objectives. And this is what you should be walking away from in week 3 learning this week. So we're going to utilize the basic navigational functionality of layers within industry standard software. So that basically says we're going to be working in layers in Photoshop. So we're going to be working in Photoshop this week. Last week we worked in Illustrator, so pretty exciting. Utilize the basic functionality of 2 navigational move and selection tools within the industry standard software, and again that's Adobe Photoshop. Discuss the importance of time management skills within professional design practice, and discuss the time management benefits of building a professional network, and identify 4 networking opportunities online or face-to-face targeted towards design students. So those are pretty much what we will be doing and discussing. So the projects and assessment, as well as your discussions this week, that's kind of what we're going to be learning. So it's always good to see what's ahead here. Okay, so this week's agenda, as we state this every time we do a lecture, what are we doing today? So basically, and maybe not so much in this order either, we just went over your learning objectives. We're going to go over your discussions. We're going to talk about building your network, managing your time. We're always talking about that, right? Because that's important. And then we'll go over your overview for assignment 3 and your assessment 3, and then we're going to do a demo. But I think I'm going to shake it up a little bit. This worked out really well the last time I taught this class last mod. Instead of doing the discussion overview right away, I think I'm going to go right to assignment 3 demo, and then we'll go into your assessment 3. That way I make sure that we have enough time for, you know, and I'm not saying discussion isn't important, but I want to make sure I have enough time for your project demos. I think that is, you know, the bigger part of this week, and I want to make sure we focus on that. And then after we do that, oh, there's my there's my dog. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. My neighbor just came out with her dog, and that just made my dog go crazy. So, all right, thank you for being patient. Okay, it's loud here, so. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into your assignment. I know a lot of you guys are excited, hopefully, about this because it's going to be working in in Photoshop, which is really, really exciting. I think it's a lot of students really enjoy this project as well as the last week's project. So some of you have dabbled in Photoshop. So it's definitely, I think, a really cool assignment. So let's go ahead and read through this. So basically, we're going to go over just Photoshop in general. We're going to look at some tools, basic tools, and the functionality of those tools, what you would use it for. Go ahead and read through your career relevancy and how that, you know, designers use Photoshop for sure. It's one of the bigger programs that we use. The background information, and I'm going to be going over these tools specifically in a second here. We're going to be talking about the rectangle tool for one. These are all pretty much called selection tools. Then you have your quick selection tool. You know, I guess that's the name that, you know, it's kind of common sense on what that is, right? We're going to take a look at that one. And then also the move tool, you'll be using a lot as well. We're going to also be using layers, and that goes into a little bit more of your practice for assessment 3. So that'll be kind of interesting to play around with layers, and that's in Photoshop. And we're also going to be playing with masks. If you ever heard of a layer mask, we're going to be playing with that and your blends and all of that stuff too. So not only are we going to go over the selection tools, just the basic selection tools, we're going to be doing some interesting blending options as well, using layers, masks, and blends. Okay, so read through all of this background information, and then your prompt says, so this is what you're going to be answering here. A composite image is an image that blends together several different images into a cohesive whole. In this assignment, you will be using the selection and move tools in Photoshop to make a composite image. You will be provided with a number of different animals, hats, backgrounds, and props to choose from. Pick one animal, one hat, and one prop. Composite these three elements together using the appropriate selection, masking, and move tools. All right, so your assignment instructions here. This is really fun, I believe. I think that once you get the hang of it, you'll definitely enjoy this project. So you're going to choose an animal from these options here. So you have 1 through 5. And these animals, I believe I have it downloaded here so you can see it real quickly. Let me share my screen here of these pictures. Now I believe I have them all kind of in the same folder. So the animals and the hats are all included in this one folder. So what I did is I just downloaded all of them. So here's an animal, that was a hat. Here's a hat. Here's a prop, animal, prop. That's an animal, prop, hat, animal, and hat. So I kind of blended all those together, but that's basically what is provided right here for you to download. So go ahead and download all of these, choose a hat, and then choose a prop. So as you saw, I kind of had all of these in one folder. So you're going to choose one of each, and you're going to make a document that is 7 inches wide by 5 inches tall at 72 dots per inch. Make sure that you're paying attention to that first. Then what you're going to do is you're going to use File and then go to Place Embedded to place your selected images into the document, place, order, resize them appropriately. You're going to use the appropriate selection masking techniques to create an effective composite. Use the necessary adjustment layers and blending modes to make the subjects appear cohesive with the background. And then when you're done, or while you're saving it, you're going to save it as a PSD file. So you're going to name it as such, PSD, so it's a working file. And then you're going to actually submit your working file so that I can look at your layers and see how you worked each of your layers appropriately, and hopefully you did it correctly. Don't forget to read it through the rubrics. This is like a checklist of how I grade and evaluate your work. So if you're hitting upon all of these marks here in your rubrics, you should be good to go. So if you have any questions on how I grade you, that is where you would look. Any questions so far? And a lot of you guys are new to, welcome Jeffrey, to Photoshop. So, and that's okay, that's great. Photoshop is, I always like to say, a big monster program. No, you're not late. We just got started. I was just telling Doranda I'm actually doing this lecture outside, so you might hear some background noise, some birds, but welcome, welcome. We started about almost 15 minutes ago, Jeffrey. So whatever you missed, you can always listen to the recording. Oh, I did. Yay. Oh, okay. Video of this week, but it froze. Oh, it did it. Okay, interesting. It froze on your end, or it actually was the video itself? Let's take a look at that. Oh, the video froze. Interesting. Oh, let's take a look at that. Okay, well, welcome, welcome. We just went over, I don't know if you just logged in, we just went over, I said I'm going to skip the discussions right now. We're going to go right to your assignment 3 demo. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Photoshop and this project here. So let's open up Photoshop. And I'm going to share my whole desktop so you can see my all my controls up here, my Finder window. So here's Photoshop, and Photoshop, like I said, is kind of like a monstrous program. We can probably do about I don't know, 5 years of just learning this program, but we're going to just start with the foundational tools and navigate it from the start here. So you guys hopefully will get a good start going forward. And then as you go throughout the program, you're going to have, you know, more in detail projects that will be utilizing each of these programs. Okay, so you're going to go File New, just like it's stated in your specifications of your project. And you're going to do right where it says on the right hand side of this new document window, just like in Illustrator, it's very similar. You're going to type in the width and the height of your artboard. In the specifications, it says it's 7 inches wide by 5 inches tall. And the only thing that you want to pay attention to is it does say inches here. Make sure that says inches. And then down here, make sure it says 72 dots per inch. I'm going to change this to RGB just for purposes of doing different specific things to the image itself. RGB is for web use, but this can always be converted if you are going to, say, export out a project for print purposes. Okay, then I'm going to hit Create. And where is my fit on screen? Where'd it go? Oh, my background's black, that's why. That's probably why, huh? All right, so my background is actually filled with black. Why is that? That's really weird. Okay, we're gonna fill it with white here. Actually, it should be, let me go back to this. I think I accidentally hit fill. So we're gonna do File New. Let's take a look at this. Maybe I accidentally chose something here. RGB, oh, custom background, there we go. We wanna do transparent, that's what happened. So that's why I had a color there. I'm gonna hit Create. Now I can see these little checkered, this checkered pattern means that this is transparent, there's no color. Okay, so pay attention to your panels. These are kind of similar to Illustrator, only they may be different panels than Illustrator, but this is where you would access more of the panels if you can't see them on your actual screen. Also up here in the right hand corner is where you can reset or have a new workspace. Remember how I showed you that in Illustrator? There's the same thing up here in Photoshop. So if you need to reset it, say you have panels all over the place, you can reset it by going to reset. If you're working, say, in different areas, say if you're working strictly in 3D or motion or painting, these are all just defaulted settings so that when you select it, say photography, all your panels are preferenced for that particular subject in there. And then you can also create your own as well, say for this class, if you would like to. And I showed you that the last time that we met up, how to do that. So that's always, an option there. Same thing in regards to collapsing your panels. You can see here, I just pulled out my toolbar. And on the upper right-hand corner, there's that double arrow, and I can click and make that, 1 column or 2 column. Some designers prefer, it's a preference thing, but some designers prefer maybe more room width-wise on their screen. Same thing with the panels. Some like to do the less amount of panels as possible. There's options to also decrease that. I just kind of did that with the little 2 arrows here. It actually puts it in almost like an icon view now with a name. So you could do that, have more space there. Same thing over here. You can collapse. You can actually pull out your panels too, say if you want more access to them. And then you can also get rid of them by hitting that little X. Okay, so it's kind of similar to, it's definitely similar to Illustrator in that regards. The big thing that you want to make sure is that you have your layers panel open. So if you don't see that on your screen right away, go up to Window, and go ahead and choose layers. This is basically how you're going to do your project based on your layers. So think of it as layers as being, you know, what you put on your, if you put like a piece of paper on your desk and then you put another piece on top of it, that's kind of how the layers work. So whatever's underneath, you may not see depending on what's on top, okay? So layers is what we're gonna be working in mainly here. Again, these are your tools. And if you just highlight your, just kind of hover right over your each tool, it'll tell you what they are. This is the move tool and actually gives you a nice little demonstration of how they're used. And that's just basically to move your images or text around on your artboard. You also have your rectangular marquee tool. And just like, you know, this is kind of cool. This is a new feature where they actually show you how you would use this. That's your rectangular marquee tool. Your marquee tools, and if you hold down that, that tool, because you can see there's a little corner arrow saying that there's more under here. There's a whole bunch of different marquee tools underneath this tool. There's the elliptical marquee tool, the single row marquee tool, and your single column marquee tool. Now there's specific reasons why you would use each one of these, but basically what they do is they select a part of the image. So let me just go ahead and click and drag that over. And I like to refer this to as marching ants. So it gives you these marching ants across your screen. And this is basically to select a part of the image to maybe change color or manipulate in some way where maybe the part that's not selected is untouched. So it's a way to select part of the image. Same thing with the circle tool. And if you hold the shift key down, it'll make it so it's proportionate. If you don't, you know, it's kind of just, it'll kind of distort. Same thing with the rectangle tool. If you want to do a square, you hold the shift key down. Otherwise, it will, you know, kind of just, I don't want to say distort, but go outside of the proportion square or circle. Single row column marquee is basically what it is. It's just kind of, and you can change this to every single tool that you select, your presets will show up above here based on that tool. So you can see up here that you have your presets based on this specific tool, just like your rectangular tool or marquee tool. The same thing up here, see how it changes to that? Okay, so so there's different ways to see how that tool reacts and how you can change certain settings. All right, so the one underneath here is actually, so we went through your marquee tool, your lasso tool, your magnetic lasso tool. You might just see your lasso tool in here depending on what's on top. But these are your lasso tools. These are also selection tools, and they're just a little different in regards to how you use them. So you can see right here, this one's more of a free-formed selection tool. So if you don't want those rigid squares or the circle, you can trace your image using the lasso tools, which kind of give a nice organic, kind of like a pencil, you know, selection. Same thing with the polygonal lasso tool. This creates straight edges instead of more organic ones. And then the magnetic lasso tool is really cool because when you select a certain part of the image, it'll sample that pixel, and then it'll automatically magnify itself to that specific coloring so that you can kind of drag. You don't even have to do anything. It just kind of magnifies and attaches to that, maybe the edge of a flower, for instance, so that you can easily trace it out. You have magic wand tools. These are great for touch-ups. Magic wand will select maybe a background of an image so that you can change it or delete it. You know, it's another selection tool. You have the quick selection tool, which is exactly what it is. And actually, let me bring up an image so you can actually see what I'm talking about here. I'm going to just go File, Place Embedded, and this is what you're going to do with your background image anyway when you're ready to start this project. So it's go File, Place Embedded, and find the image background that you want to work in. I'm going to do, let's see what my image background will be. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to place this image here just so I can show you certain tools and how they work. Place this in here, and then we'll do the actual demo. And as you see, I just hit place, and then I selected the move tool, or if you hit tab 2, it'll place it. I made it a little bit bigger by, let me do this again so you can see, because I did it real quick. File, place, embed. And you can adjust the size. Let me find that little, there you go. You can adjust the size. These are called bounding box areas. So you can hold the shift key down and drag these out a little bit bigger. Actually, you don't have to hold the shift key down because that'll distort it, to make it a little bit bigger. And you can see that it creates a layer here, and it's a smart object layer because it's showing this little it's a smart object icon on top of it. So that's just telling me that, you know, I can create something and it will, you know, it won't change the original image. It's actually keeping it protected. If it's not a smart object, it will take the pixels, you know, will change them, and I won't be able to go back to the original. So that's kind of what smart objects are. Okay, so the selection tools, again, I'm going to go over this again and just show you really quickly. So like, say if I wanted to just select this part of the image and change the color, I would go up to, with that selected, with that layer that I want to affect, I would go up to image. Actually, I would go up to layer, sorry. There's layers called new adjustment layers. And adjustment layers are great because you can add an adjustment layer on an actual layer without, again, throwing away pixel information. You can edit it, you can delete it without bothering the original image at all. So that's the way to go. There's other ways you can actually adjust the color of this image too, and I'll show you in a second. That's not the best way, but this is the best way. So go up to layer, new adjustment layer, and let's say you wanted to just change the color in this image, okay? So you would probably go to one of these channels in between here. So the top part is your brightness, contrast level, so it affect the brightness and the contrast, exposure, curves is the same thing, it would be your contrast. The middle section here is more affecting your colors. So the vibrance, you can make it more vibrant, less vibrant, for example. Hue, saturation, that would be changing the color totally. And the saturation, you can have it more saturated or desaturated. Color balance is, again, changing the different colors within the image. Black and white, you can actually just make it black and white. Photo filter, channel mixer, color lookup. Now below here is our different color changes as well. They're just, they just are a little bit more extreme. Like for instance, the invert would just invert your image into like a, it would invert it. So it would actually change the color completely based on what that image looks like. Posterize would make it kind of grainy. You can play around with that. You can actually choose a selective color, but we're going to go to color balance just to show you real quick. So color balance, it gives you the option to change the name. I'm just going to say okay. You can change the opacity here too. I'm just going to click OK. Now, notice what happens in your layers when I click OK. It adds this is called an adjustment layer, and adds the adjustment layer. So you have this little, for the color balance, it's showing this little like scale type of an icon, and then it shows you the actual artboard. So if you double click on this, for instance, and I don't really have to because, actually, let me double click on it. The layer mask is shown here, and if I click on the actual, you don't have to double click, on the actual scale, it gives you the properties panel. So that's the mask, and then this is the properties panel. See how I click on that and it changes it? So basically this property panels is basically what you're going to play around with, and you'll see when I start sliding these, it'll start affecting that area that I made with that square. So that selection that I made with that square is only being altered because that's what I have selected. And this is just affecting the midtones here. So you can actually, this is like the neutral colors in your image. You can also change the shadows in your image. You can also change the highlights in your image based on the different colors here, okay? When you're satisfied with that, you have your layer, your actual adjustment layer right here. And let's say, oh, I don't want it to be 100% this color. Maybe this is too extreme. You also have the option for opacity here, and you can dial down that effect so it's not so extreme, but it has that opacity to it. So you can go all the way down to 12%, or take it to 50, but that's what that's for. Another thing is you can actually hide that, still keep that adjustment layer, just hide it by clicking on the little eyeball. And that's what's really nice about having a layer, an adjustment layer, is you can always delete that layer and not affect the original layer in any way. So you can edit it. You can actually go back and edit this. Say you don't want it to be totally extreme with the red. Go ahead and change it up a little bit. Maybe it's the other direction. This is like really extreme here, so that's why the image is getting kind of crappy. But that's what the selection does, and that's what the adjustment layer does. The other tool, so this is the move tool. This will move your image, again, on your screen or your text, whatever you do. Circles the same way, like say if I wanted to just, affect the circle here. There's another way you can change the color without doing it the layer adjustment way. I wanted to show you this too. This is just a really quick way to do it, but it also changes the original image. So if you go up to image and choose adjustments, you can do the same thing that I just did, but not have a layer adjustment. But what's not really good about this, see, this is another way to do it, is it actually, well, because this is a smart image, actually, it's giving me a filter. If this wasn't a smart object and it was actually rasterized, it wouldn't give me the option to have the smart filter on here. So it would affect the actual image, which is, let me show you here real quick so you can see how that works. That's the nice thing about smart images, is they don't allow you to take away from the original image. So I would have to actually rasterize this image first. So I would go up to layer, rasterize, smart object. That takes the little smart object thing away, the little icon. It's not a smart object anymore. And if I were to go to adjustments and try this again, you'll see what I'm talking about on the right hand side. Once I click OK and I come back to this, I cannot change that. That's actually changing my original image. I can't edit it in any way. So that's kind of the quick way to do it, but not so smart way to do it. Okay, so kind of avoid that adjustment. You want to go up to layer, new adjustment layer, and actually put an adjustment layer on it. Okay. Magnetic, or the lasso tools, this is a nice way to, and you can zoom in on your work while you do this, because some work you have to zoom in to get really close to your subject. But the lasso tool, if you're clicking on the lasso tool, it's kind of cool. It's like a little pen. And what you do is you just click on your image and you kind of draw it around the best that you can around your image where you want to select it. And I'm not doing such a great job here. I'm just doing this really quick. And that's I guess the con about using the lasso tool is, it doesn't get real, you can kind of screw up a lot without getting all of the details in there. But once you come to the very start, is the very end, it'll close it, and then now you'll be able to adjust this. Now you can put, this is a little bit more in detail, or more advanced, but there's a thing called Edit Quick Mask down here, which is by your fill and your stroke, your two fill colors. It has like a square with a circle on it. If you click on that, once you make that selection, you can actually see all the red areas is telling you that that's what you didn't select. So if you wanted to go in there and fix this, you could actually do that very easily by using the brush tool. So select the brush tool in this mode here to make sure you click on the image itself. And then what you would do with the black fill selected going forward, you could change the hardness and the size of your brush up here. You can go in and actually make it, so that you're right on that line, and it kind of cleans it up a little bit. And you can make your brush smaller to get into the details of your image here. Now this has an opacity to it. I have it at 100% opacity, so it's just laying down 100% selection color here. But this is where I can actually fine tune my selection a little easier using the quick mask mode. Any questions about that? Kind of an advanced step. You don't have to necessarily do this. This is just showing you a little advanced step here. Now, if you wanted to, say I went in too far and I wanted to include his tail, just flip the foreground and background color. So you have white in the foreground and black in the background, and then you would just paint over what you want selected. And then you would just paint away that red. Okay. So you can go ahead and, you know, really fine tune your selection this way. For some reason, I can't see my, there we go. I can't see my circle for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm outside. Okay, and then when you're done, what you would do is click right on top again of this edit standard mode to take it back. And there you go. You can see your selections a little bit tighter and neater. And then that way, if you need to do any type of adjustments here, you can do new adjustment layer. And let's say you wanted to do, let's just do black and white so you can see a really big change here. And you can make him all black and white. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so that is the lasso tool. Now the same thing in the lasso tool, you have the polygonal, and that's more of like sharp lines. So if say you have a building more so than an animal, you could use that to select your building, something that's more, you know, has sharper lines to it. So that's what you would use that for. Magnetic lasso tool, again, is a selection tool, and this is a really neat tool. I like using this tool because, like I said, if you click on, let's click on, say, the top of his head here on the edge of where his head meets the sky. And as long as I'm clicking right on his fur, what it's going to do is I click one time, I just follow my cursor and I'm not clicking anymore. And it's just kind of adhering to those same pixels close to the coloring that I chose. So I'm just kind of, you know, and if you mess up, you just hit the delete key, going back. Holding down the space bar, by the way. That's a nice way to navigate your screen if you're zoomed in. But what it's doing is it's actually creating these, I'm gonna just click over here. It's doing the work for me. I'm not having to trace it myself pressure-wise. It's actually, and I can still click down and make these points if I want. Sometimes that's nice if it's, the contrast is really low and it's like right here. It's not quite going where I want it to go. So I have to click, re-click, and allow it to kind of pick those pixels that are needed to magnetize to. So it's kind of like a magnet. I'm gonna hit delete. Now this looks really easy because I have used this for a long time, and I don't think it's real hard to use, but you may find yourself getting frustrated because it's not quite going as quick as I'm showing you right here. It's just because I have a lot of practice with this tool. I actually really enjoy this tool, and I've used it a lot in my career to edit images. So, you know, I have 20 plus years in using this tool. So don't get frustrated, just kind of go at your own pace and play around with it. But you have to meet the very end point that you started in order to close that selection. And then again, you can go up to layer, adjustment layer, and you can change, let's go to hue and saturation this time. Like you can make it black and white this way, or you can make it more vibrant. You can change the, you know, the tone of the color altogether. So kind of cool, huh? The hue itself. And again, say you don't want 100% that color, you can go dial that layer down a little bit. So it's just showing a little bit, not 100% up here in your layers panel. Or if you want to just delete it all together, you can delete it. Any questions about that tool? Those are pretty cool. Cool little selection tools there. The quick selection tool, again, is it's almost like a paintbrush. If you click right over top of what you want to select, it's a quick selection tool based on the pixels that you're clicking on. Now you have to be really careful with this because you can see just now it just selected my background and I didn't want that to be selected. So it's based on, obviously the contrast of your image. So if you have a very similar background, it's not very contrasted, you're going to have the issue of it selecting when you don't want it to select, which is fine. You can always go back and edit this like I showed you. But that's just a quick way to do it. Like I said, you can do a quick selection mask on there. Go ahead in there and actually paint out, say, the foot that wasn't quite selecting correctly. Or you could take out the grass that was accidentally selected in there. And I'm just using the paintbrush tool again. And boom, go hit that again, and you'll see your selection is a little tighter, or whatever you kind of choose to do. So that's the quick selection tool. Anytime you click off of it, it's going to deselect, just kind of an FYI there. That's the quick selection tool. You have your object selection tool. And again, this is kind of what it is. You just, kind of draw a line over top or whatever, a selection, and it'll select. Magic wand tool is actually fun to use too. This works really well if you have, say, like a white background, you just want to edit out the background. What it's going to do is when you click on a certain pixel, it's going to pick pixels that are very similar in color. And then you have a tolerance up here. So the higher the tolerance, the more pixels in that range it'll select. So let's go, so you saw it at a 35. Let's hit 75. Let's type that in. And I'm going to click again on this area. See how it selected more out of that pixel range, okay? Now if I go tighter, meaning the less number, go back to that, it's going to be more picky. The tolerance is lower and it's going to be more picky about your selection. Now, you can always hit the shift key to select more into that. So hold down the shift key, you can say it didn't select all of the image, but you're trying to just select around him. Holding down that shift key and then selecting the areas that weren't selected is going to include them in your selection. So I'm just holding down that shift key and it's selecting more of the areas that aren't selected. So it's getting a little tighter in here. Now I'm going to up the tolerance just a little bit so that, getting all the details in here. Hold down the shift key. There we go, we got a little tighter. And then if there's still stragglers, you can always go back to your mask mode again. Oops, just make sure you have the right selection, foreground, background. And you can go in here and, kind of control your selection a little bit more. And then what you can do, again, put a layer mask on here. That's if you want to actually change the background. Let's do black and white again. Now the background is selected only, the dog isn't. You can do that as well, which is kind of cool. So whatever you're selecting, you can change the color of. Okay, so you have layers here. You have layer masks, which I'll tell you about too. So layer masks are great for also compositing images because you can really do some really cool blendings. Let me delete this image here real quick. Let's see if I can delete. How do I delete this? Name this background. For some reason I can't delete this layer. That's really weird. Let's see. Very strange. Okay, I'm gonna just do a new layer and then I'm just gonna delete this. There we go. Okay, so I just did a new layer and then deleted the smart object. I think it's because it's a smart object, it kind of is picky. Okay, so let me go File, Place, Embed, and let me find a good background image to kind of show you how to do this here. Let's do, okay, let's start with this horse. So this is one of your animal images that you have to choose from. I'm gonna just make this a little bit bigger here. All right, okay, So layer masks are really cool. And how you would use that is you were able to, with layer masks, take away certain parts of that image so it blends into a background image or blends into another image. So I'm going to place in another image, so file, place, embed, because we are to pick another prop. Let's see here. Let's do, let's put like maybe the top hat on him. All right, so placing this image in here, make this a little smaller here. There we go. Okay, so you can see it's on top of the horse image. You can see the layer here. If I were to switch these layers, now if I hide the background or the top image, you'll see that background image. So just know that's how layers work. And you can always reorder them. Just click and drag them up or over. Okay. That's the top image. I'm using the move tool to move it around. Okay, so a mask is way down here on the very bottom of your layers panel. It's called a layer mask, and you're going to add that to your hat image. So you're going to just click right on top of that mask, and then you'll see that a mask is created. So now you can go ahead and take your paintbrush tool. Let's see here. And select the hardness, whatever you kind of want to do, the opacity, and make sure that the black is in the forefront when you're doing this, and you can actually take out that background image using that paintbrush. Now if you want to get a little bit more precise around the hat, you can make your brush size smaller and less soft. So that's how the masking works. It's pretty cool. That's another way to take away part of the image so it blends in with the background. So it's revealing only the hat part. Pretty cool, huh? It's a really cool way to do it. What shortcut did you use? What shortcut? For what? Oh, for the sizing of your brush? Okay, so that's actually right next to the letter P on your keyboard. It's the brackets. So the left bracket gets it smaller and the right bracket gets it larger. Or you could just go up here and change it, which is gets kind of weird after a while. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the shortcut. Sorry, sometimes I get into this and I forget to do that or talk about that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And like I said, if you go too far, you can always change your mask like you did in the other way of selecting this, and I'll show you in a second. Like let's say, for instance, I accidentally deleted this part. Okay, you can always flip these and paint it back. So as long as your white is reveal and your black is to take away, to hide. Okay, so if you wanted to clean that up a little bit, say you kind of went a little bit too far, you want to make sure it looks, believable in regards to not having like an outer glow or anything weird. So try to, zooming in always helps too. Okay, so when you get that to where it needs to be, oh, I see a little spot. Sometimes it's good to kind of move it around to see if there's any spots that were missed. Go back here. You guys are going to do a better job than me here. I'm just quickly doing this. Okay, so you can do use your move tool to move it around. If you want to get this smaller, all you have to do is go up to edit with that layer selected, go to transform, so edit, transform, and choose scale. Then pull, oh, I see some lines I missed too. Pull this inward so that it gets smaller, your bounding box, and then you can put this hat right on top of this horse, right there. I'm going to zoom in so I can see a little bit better. Just a little tip, when I zoom in more, it's going to be pixelated. Just kind of know that that's just, I'm like 800% zoomed in, so that's okay. You can make this layer, you can hide it. You can make this layer, say if you wanted to see kind of where the ear is of the horse. Can you blur the hat? Yeah, you could do whatever you want to the hat. Yep. So I'm going to dial the opacity down to 40% so I can see the ear of the horse. And I want the first part of this ear to kind of go over the actual hat. But before I do that, and you can, let me take this to 100%. I'm going to tip it. So I'm going to go back up to transform, and I'm going to choose edit transform. I'm going to choose rotate, and I'm just going to tip this just a little bit. So you can tip it and rotate it that way. And click the move tool or tab when you're done. Okay, now I'm going to dial this back down to 40%. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out where the ear is for the hat. So I take the paintbrush tool, size it appropriately, and I'm going to just mask this part out. So I'm just going to paint right over top of the ear. You can clean that up again. And then when I'm ready to reveal it, I just dial this back up to 100%. And boom, that's his ear going over the hat. Pretty cool, huh? Yes, you can blur the hat. You can go up to filter, blur, and you can blur it. Gaussian blur is a smarter blur that you can make it blend in a little bit more or less. You can change this color of the hat to better, you know, this actually doesn't look too bad, but let's say if it had like a tint to it, you could add a layer mask to it and change, you know, the color by doing a layer mask. Yeah. Let me bring this property box. Let's say we want to add a little bit more red to, oh, that's another thing I wanted to show you. See how I just changed this red, but it's affecting the whole image, not just the hat? So how do we make it so it just affects the hat image and not the whole, all the images? Well, we have to put a clipping mask on it. And a clipping mask is really easy to do. All we need to do is go in between the layer, adjustment layer, and the actual hat, or whatever you want to change it to. So we only want it to affect the hat. We go in between these two layers, and we're going to hold down the option key, and you'll see kind of like a drop down arrow and a box will appear. And you're going to click right in between these two layers with that option key selected, and boom. Now it shows almost like a little drop down arrow here, and that's telling me I'm only affecting the hat now, not the rest of the image. See how it kind of just affects the hat? You can change the color of the hat. Pretty cool. Oh, okay, you want to do the cow, but that's okay, I get it. So that's how you would affect just the hat and not the whole entire image. Oh, okay, yep. Yes, this will be available as soon as we're done. It takes usually about 20 minutes to process, so I will be posting that so you guys will have that. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. Sorry to hear that. All right, any questions so far? You're welcome. So that is how you would use masks. Now, don't forget, you already used an animal image, one hat, and one prompt. So if I were to want to use this as my project, I probably would have to add a prop in here. And one of the props, let's see, hot air balloons. That'll be like, say, my next prop. Let me add these in. Okay, so I'm gonna place these in here. Now you could do it different ways. You could put a mask on this, just like I showed you before. Put a mask, take away the background. Ooh, there's the black is in the front. Or if you have a white background on any image, I think the easiest way to get rid of the background is to not add a layer mask on it, but to actually just use the selection tool. Let me delete this mask here. So you could use, say, your magic wand tool and just click one time on the background. And just make sure the tolerance is set a little lower, because you want that, you want it so that it's not going inside your colors here. It looks pretty good. And then you would just hit the delete key. Oh, this is an object. I'd have to rasterize this first. Hold on, guys. It's not as easy as I'm gonna make it seem. You're gonna have to rasterize the Smart Object first. So you would go up to Layer, rasterize Smart Object first, and then you would hit delete. Because it's a Smart Object, it doesn't want you to delete out the background, because you're gonna lose it and you won't be able to get it back. But I just wanted to show that to you guys because that's another option too. Okay. Now you can make this blend in a little bit more. There's blending options up here in your layers panel. So I'm just selecting the balloon layer. And this drop down menu where it says normal is where your blend modes are. So you can kind of choose different blending modes if it works for your particular picture. Now everybody's different in what they choose. So you might want to play around with this. Now, let's see, some of these are real extreme. Like let's say, usually multiply is a good one. Screen sometimes is a good one depending on what you're dealing with. Sometimes what I like to do is create a copy. So I have two of the layers of balloons. There's 1 and 2. And the top one, I like to put maybe like an interesting blend. Say if I wanted to do a little lighter, and I didn't want 100% of that, so I want to kind of have the bottom show through. I'll change the opacity a little bit. And let's see here, let's do a little bit different, maybe like a pin light. And you can kind of blend it on based on that too, and the fill as well. And actually, let me adjust the fill. That might be, the fill is basically, let's not show much of the fill here. I think that's if you have a color. So it would be the opacity. So you're changing the opacity. Let's do the hard mix so you can actually see it. And right there. See, it's a little hard to see because some of them are so subtle, but now you can kind of see the little change to it. And I'm just dialing the opacity down. So it's not full percent opacity. It's a little hard, less hard. So separating the balloons is really easy. That's a good question. You would just take one of your selection tools. Yep. And you could select it with, say, just the rectangular tool. And then once that's selected, you can move it with your move tool. Now, once you place it, like once it's placed here, and then you try to move it again, it'll move together as a group. You have to actually select that particular balloon with that particular selection in order to and you can delete it too. Like if you hit the delete key, you can delete it. Yeah. You can put drop shadows on things too. Let's go back to the hat. Let's select the hat. So it has to be, the actual hat has to be selected, not the mask. So right here I have it selected. And I go, and let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better here. And if I go up to layer and I go to layer style, I can do a drop shadow on that. So layer style, drop shadow. And this is a little bit more advanced. So if you don't want to do this, that's fine. Just make sure that the preview is selected so you can see the changes happening before you commit. And I'm going to change the opacity so you can actually see that drop shadow up here. See how that kind of makes it look like it's darker around it. And then you can change the blending mode of that too. You know, say if you want it to be, you know, blend a little bit differently, or screen, for instance, you can have it screened, a screen blend, or if you just want to do a normal one, that's fine. And you can change like how the drop shadow, so say if the light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner, you'll want to change the angle of your drop shadow so that it reflects that. I think in this instance, it's more like a top down. So that would probably make sense. You can change the distance of your drop shadow here, the spread of it here. Oh, I got some work to do on that. And then the size of it here. I usually try to keep these down pretty low. I don't think I have, you know, the more subtle it is, and click OK. So let me just show you in the layers. You can see now that I clicked OK. The effects is added to your layer. See how it says effects and drop shadow. So if you wanted to see how that affects it, just hit that little eyeball and you'll see the before and after. I can see like definite changes that I need to do to the mask that I missed up here. There, I just cleaned it up. There you go. So it kind of makes it look like it's more part of the image, I think. You know, it's kind of setting it in a little bit so that it looks, let me change my color balance here. So it looks a little bit more realistic, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. I can do that with the balloons too if I wanted to put like a drop shadow on those. See how that, I'm going to do the preview so you can see the before and after. If you don't want it to be so extreme, you could dial down the opacity, click OK. And again, it'll show it in your layers here, so you can hide it there too. Kind of gives it a nice effect, you know, and you can always adjust it. If you want to just double click on it to change it, you can change the opacity, you know, you're not stuck to it. Do that, you can double click and change that. It's completely up to you. The only instructions given were to composite an image together to make it look real. You have to use one animal image, one hat, and one prop. So that's where the creativeness comes in. So it's up to you. You don't have to manipulate the animal pick. I would manipulate it in regards to maybe putting a hat on it or something, or you know, you could place it into that frame that was given as a prop. I mean, there's so many different ideas. I actually have another one that I did. Let me show you some examples so that you can at least be inspired and say, hey, that's a good idea. Or, ooh, I want to try that. This is one that I did for the first class last mod. So here I actually did the opposite. So I took the prop as my background instead. This will answer your question actually right now. And then I masked the pig and I masked the hat. Stay with the images that were provided just because that's what the instructions say. But I would definitely push you guys to experiment on your own with your own personal images. I think a lot of you guys end up doing so anyway, because once you start learning these tools, it's kind of fun, and then you start messing around with your own pictures. So definitely I would encourage that too. But yeah, definitely stick for the assignment details because I have to grade in a certain way. And if you go outside of the parameters, I won't be able to grade it. So unfortunately, I would love for you guys to be able to do your own images, but you can't for this submission. All right, so then when you're done, click save, and you're gonna save it as DGD101, how it says, assignment 3, first last name. And you're just gonna save this as a Photoshop file. I'm going to save this to my desktop so I know where it's at. Click OK. And then that's what you would submit. And then when I open it, I can actually see your layers in here, click on them, and see if you did it correctly. Now I have student examples too. I have 3 to show you here. Yes. So that you can see what past students have done. Let's see, sidebar here. Hold on. You know, get inspired. Some people added, like this person actually added a really cute little icon here, and I wouldn't be opposed to that, just as long as you're, you know, you have the main stuff in here, so it's a little different. This is a cow, and the prop is the sunglasses, and the hat is the hat. The hat is the hat. Here's another one with the pig. And this is kind of a neat one using the prop as the frame. So you could do something like that too, or, you know, just have fun with it. Be creative. If you have any problems with anything, the tools or whatever, just let me know. And also don't forget that if I'm not available to help you, you have a lab instructor for this class that you can make an appointment with and a learning coach. So you can schedule time with them as well if you're not quite getting a certain thing correct. What we want you to do, we want to see that you're actually working on it. We can't do the project for you, obviously, because we want to see that you can do it on your own. So, if you run into any type of problems as you're working forward, that would be a good way to kind of resolve certain issues. And um, so, okay. Any questions about assignment 3? Is it pretty clear what you guys need to do? And that's assignment 3. So this is just kind of what I just went over just now. So kind of putting that all together. Okay. Yeah, you like that. What doesn't belong here? The deer. Yeah. I think these two, what is that called? What is that? Muskrat? I don't want to say muskrat, but a meerkat. There you go. The other two are African. There you go. So you want it to look like they all are supposed to be one image. It's somewhat believable. It's composited. So this is kind of how you're supposed to do that assignment. All right, I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to have to charge my battery here, and I'm actually going to take my computer inside because I am sweating. It's going to be hot today. We'll recharge and come back in 5 minutes. I'll go over your assessment project, and then we'll discuss your 2 discussions. Does that sound good? Okay, I'll meet you guys back here in about 5 minutes. All right, can you guys hear me? Woo. It's running around here. Sorry if it's a little bit more than 5 minutes. Woo, had to find my charger. All right, so good. So we went over assignment 3. That was the big project. Assessment 3 is going to be a little different. You guys are going to be working in layers. So basically, you're going to be and also adjustment layers. Don't feel like you can't change this up either. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to download the project zip file. We'll take a look at this in a second. You're going to open the first PSD file and you're going to save the file as, and notice how this says the assessment 3 first last name, but it says file 1. So you're going to be doing this for each of these within that zipped file. So it'll be numbered as such. You're going to apply a black and white adjustment layer to the layer 1. You're going to hide layer 6. You're going to make layer 2 visible, and you're going to go on and on and on based on these instructions here. And I'll show you this in a second. And then there's a part 2 to this assessment where you're going to be working with layers, adjustment layers, moving layers, deleting layers, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a look, since I think it's a little confusing when you see it there. Let's go to the actual assessment here. It seems like a lot, but it's not too bad. Okay, so this is basically getting you more practice with using layers and also adjustment layers. So go ahead and read through the career relevancy, read through the background. It talks about the adjustment layers. So there's content and adjustment layers. We just talked about adjustment layers. We looked at how they work in assignment 3. Talks about viewing layer visibility. And this is basically, you know, how you can shut that layer off by just hiding that little eyeball. You can reorder your layers. I showed you how to do that. Create new content layers. You can actually create layers. And then also creating new adjustment layers. And I showed you how to do that as well. You can delete a layer. I believe I showed you that as well. Okay, so prompt. In this assessment, you'll be working with the layers panel in Photoshop. You will not create your own file yet, but you will practice navigating the layers panel in a pre-made document. This will ensure that you have a good foundation in working with layers so that when you begin to create your own documents, you will be able to easily navigate through them. So go ahead and download this. It's a zipped file, so go ahead and open that up here in a second. Welcome, Anna. I just saw that you came in here. Welcome, welcome. Let's see here. Okay. So assessment 3 has 5 of these different Photoshop files in here. So basically, you're going to open up the first one, and that one is showed by the number 1. And you're going to follow the instructions here. So you're going to choose 2 files and perform the following actions. So out of those 5 different options, you're going to choose 2. You won't use all of them. Okay. 2 files, but you're going to do all of the adjustments for each file that you choose. So adjustments for file 1, whichever one that you choose to do, these are the adjustments that you're going to do. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pick one to do the adjustments to. So let me I'm just going to open up number 1 just for the purposes of showing you this here. And let me share my whole desktop so you guys can see. I'll do a side by side here. Okay. I'm gonna move this over so we can see. Let me reset my essentials, clean up my background, my panels here. Hide some of this stuff. See how I kind of decreased my panel width so that I can have both of these side by side up here. Okay. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to open up. I opened up the option1.psd. You can do whichever one you choose. Just choose one for this. Open the file, and you're going to save it as DGD101 Assessment 3 first last name file 1. So go ahead and go File, Save As. 101. I already got that wrong. underscore assessment 3, underscore first last name, and then this is the important part, file1 dot, and you have to do .psd. It'll actually just add it to it. So once you hit file or type in file1, just leave it as is. Just make sure that this is set to Photoshop. And I'm going to put this on my desktop and click save. Okay. Then you're going to apply a hue and saturation. This is number 2 here. You're going to apply a hue and saturation adjustment layer to layer 8 only. Okay, so I'm going to open up my layers. And you can see that there are 10 layers. 9 are being shown here, just background is 10 layers. So I'm going to go to layer 8, which is this, for this particular image, it's the coffee image. Select that layer, that's how you would know that it's being selected. And you're going to apply a hue and saturation adjustment. Does anybody remember how to add a layer adjustment? If you were telling me how to do that, how would you do that? Let me bring this back up here so you can see the finder. What would I do with that actual layer? How would I actually do a layer adjustment? So with that layer selected, I would go up to where up here on the finder would I select? Would I select File, Edit, Image, Layer, Type, Select, Filter, 3D, View, Window, or Help? Layer, good. And then what? See, you didn't miss it. This was kind of the obvious, right? And then new layer adjustment. Yep, there you go. And it says it wants you to change the hue and saturation. So you would choose that and click OK. And it says here, you want to lower the saturation to -25. And before you do anything, you're going to have to do a clipping mask. But let's go ahead and do it so that you can see what happens before and after the clipping mask. So it says negative, what did it say? -25 for the saturation. So see where it says saturation right here? You're going to type in this little, see where it says 0, saturation, -25, and see how it goes down. So you can see the whole image gets a -25. We don't want that, right? So how do I put a clipping mask on here? Does anybody remember how to do that? What do I have to do so that I'm not desaturating the entire image? I'm only desaturating layer number 8. What do I have to do in between this layer 8 and my hue saturation? Do you remember? Ooh, yep, it's a clipping mask. Yep, how do I do you remember how I showed you how to create a clipping mask? You hold down what button and then you click in between these 2 layers. Is it either Control or Option? That's okay. This is good that we're reviewing this then. Okay, it's Option. So hold down the Option key. And you'll know that it's the Option key because you'll see the little arrow and the square. That's what you want to see. And then you're going to click in between these 2 and watch what happens. Boom. You know it's a clipping mask is made. You have this little down arrow in your layer adjustment, and then it's just affecting the image. If I hide this adjustment layer, you'll see kind of only is affecting this image and not the whole entire, all the other layers. So that's how you would do a clipping mask. That's a clipping mask. You would hold the Option key and click in between the layer that you want it to be masked, in between your adjustment layer and the layer that you want affected only. You would click the Option, click in between. Okay. Okay, and then number 4, you're going to move layer 5 so it is on top of layer 1. So, and everybody's going to be different because you might not be picking this particular file, and that's okay. So how do I move layer 5 above layer 1? How do I do that? Click and drag. Yep. Click and hold that click and then drag it right on top and let go. Did you see what happened? Now this is in front of this word here. That's my layer 5. Okay, good. All right, and then number 5, move layer 1 from the left side of the image to the right side. So whatever is on layer 1, I select layer 1. Whatever is on the left side, you're going to move to the right side. Whoops. That means this is going to be the right side. Not this, it's layer 1. That's the relax word. Sorry, guys. We're going to move to the right side. There we go. So move layer 1 from the left side of the image to the right side. Okay. Number 6, turn the visibility off on layer 6. So how would I do that? Here's layer 6. I would hit the little eyeball, right? I just kind of showed you. Oh, so just hide that little guy, hide that little eyeball for number 6, or layer 6 and number 6. And then number 7, the last thing to do is delete layer 9. Does anybody know how to delete a layer? I think I showed you this. Yep, hit the little trash can. You can either hit the trash can, you can drag it down to the trash, you can go up to the right-hand corner here and you can delete it there. So there's a couple ways you can do it, or you just hit delete the little trash can and click OK. There's always a couple ways to do one step, but that's how you would delete it. Good. All right, and then when you're done, you're just going to save this. So go ahead and save this. Save. And then you're going to go on to your next part, which is adjustment for 2. So let's go ahead and click out of there. And adjustment for number 2. So pick your second one. You're going to open the file. So let me open up. This one. Something different here. All right, there's all my layers. And then you're going to save it as file 2. You don't have to put the .ps. It kind of puts it on there when you save it. Save. Okay. All right. And then it says apply hue and saturation layer to layer 8 only. And you're going to, this time, instead of decrease the saturation, you're going to increase it by 50. So that's layer 8 only. So I'm going to go to layer 8, and that's the actual image of the airplane. I'm going to go up to layer, new adjustment layer, hue and saturation, and click OK. And where it says saturation, I'm going to increase it by 50. So I could just type in 50 or move the slider that way. And how do I make a clipping mask so that it doesn't see how it affected the whole entire image? I don't want it to do that. What do I have to click? What button do I have to select and click in between the two? Option, good. Yay, there we go. So if I hide it, so I could see the saturation got really, really bright, like vibrant. So I know that's good. Perfect. Okay, you're going to move layer 7 so it is on top of layer 5. Right there. So I'm going to move it, drag it, and drop it right on top. Which one was that? Oh, that's these little lines here. And then move layer 1 from the left side of the image to the right, whatever's on layer 1. And what's my layer? Oh, that's the verbiage here. It helps to, when you're selecting type, to really click right on top of the type, or else it will select another layer. Turn the visibility off of layer 9, and delete layer 4. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. Okay. So that's kind of what that would look like. It's transparent in the background. That would actually be printed white or whatever the color of the paper would be if that's kind of what it's being printed as. And then do a save. And then what you would need to do is the next submission requirement. So create a new folder with the file name. Put both of your adjusted PSD files into that folder. Then you're going to compress your folder. And then you're going to upload that to the assessment. So I'll show you that in a second here. Let's hide all my stuff. Okay, so you're going to click on your wherever I'm on my desktop. If you should have like a folder in your documents folder or on your hard drive. Go file new folder and click and drag it into your hard drive or wherever you're storing your files. And go ahead and name it this name, actually my first and last name. There we go. And then I have my 2 PSD files. I'm just going to dump in there for my assessment. Does anybody know how to zip this on a Mac? There's 2 ways. You can right click. You can choose the control click and choose compress. Or you can go up to file and choose compress. Good. So this is the file that you would keep on your hard drive, and then this is what you would submit. This is the compressed folder. Any questions about that? That's pretty easy, right? You just have to figure out, you know, which images that you're going to choose to alter, but for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory, each step, I believe. Just make sure that you're doing that clipping mask so that you're not affecting that whole image. Any questions about that? I'm going to skip on up here where we were before. We're going to talk about our discussion because we kind of missed that. Well, we didn't miss it, but we kind of rearranged our agenda here so that we could do the demos for the projects first. Okay. All right. Well, have fun with that. And somebody was asking about the recording. Once we're done here, it usually takes about 20 minutes to process, but I will be placing this into the live session area here. So if you go, just like you were to attend this live session, it's down here. It should be in the week 3 section here. There is a pre-recorded video. Somebody said that it freezes the last 10 minutes. I'll have to check that out. But definitely check this too. It's about almost 2 hours. It says 19 hours. That's weird. Oh, you know what? That's seconds. Okay. So it's about 1 hour and 50 minutes. And then I will post it below here, this recording. So hopefully you guys you can like review it if you need to. Okay, so let's go forward with your discussions. Yeah, a little bit more than 10 minutes. Okay, so your discussion 3, you have 2 discussions again. We're going to be talking about networking. And it's really important, just I think with any career it's important, but especially as a designer, I think that's one of the things that sometimes is a little difficult for some of us. Depending on your comfort level, but there are definitely some benefits to starting your networking, and you can do that now as a student. I would start by networking with your peers. I have had so many opportunities from past alumni that I graduated with just by keeping networked with them. So it's kind of crazy, but I always like to say, you know, really kind of try to network with all of your peers. That way, you know, when you're in the working world, you just never know what will come up. So where do we start? So the benefits of networking and building professional networking is definitely a critical component to a successful career as a designer. So let's talk about the benefits. So think about finding people relevant to your career to network with. That's why here, in your field, as fellow students, you guys should be connecting in that way, because we can all benefit from each other, even as alumni when you do graduate. Having access to knowledge beyond your experience is great, and you can network too on like sites like Behance or LinkedIn. You can follow certain designers or certain firms and gain that a network through there in regards to people who you are inspired by or places that you're inspired by. Being the first person someone thinks about. So, having that in with somebody, it's who you know, sometimes not what you know, hopefully what you know and who you know. So being that first person that someone thinks about is important too. So having that good rapport with someone is important. Gaining access to help on a personal level and referrals to customers and job openings. Like I said, I actually just referred somebody that I used to work with that was my professor whenever I was in graduate school. So you just never know. You might know somebody that you went to school with, and they come to you, and you still are friends with them, and then an opportunity opens up, and you share that opportunity and help each other out, vice versa. So where to start? So you can join a blog and participate. There's blogs out there. Even through different social media platforms. Attend a local design event in your area. I know I've done this in Florida. When I used to live in Florida, I was interested in being in groups of people who are relevant to the design field. So I would, meet up with them through Facebook groups. It would be like design clubs or whatever. So that we can meet, and you meet people that way. You meet people that you may have not thought about that are in the field that could get you a job or opportunities or projects. But then also you guys can build that relationship and collaborate together too, or just even to talk about the field and kind of your concerns or love for design and stuff like that. Just inspiring each other is great. Attend conferences. AIGA has conferences every year. I know this one was canceled recently in Pittsburgh because of the virus, but typically there are conferences around you that you can also attend that are design related, that you can go to and network with people, in-house places and also agencies possibly in your area. Attend trade fairs, join LinkedIn, create your professional Facebook page. This would be separate from your personal Facebook page, something that you can use also to network. Join a professional organization. It doesn't have to be design oriented either. It could be something completely different organization, but maybe you are networking with somebody who needs something design wise, and that could open up, opportunities. Join in the student groups. There's student groups here for IU, definitely to take advantage of. So in discussion one for this week, how do you plan on networking when you're in school and once you graduate? Let's start thinking about that. Let me go to your discussions and we can read through it a little bit clearer here, week 3. So basically, read through the background, just kind of goes over things that I've just talked about too, talks about time management and certain things like that, building a professional network, student groups, social networks, local meetups. So in this discussion, imagine that you're attending a local AIGA, a Professional Association for Design, student event. Over coffee, another student begins talking to you. They tell you that they're not confident talking about or promoting themselves. When anyone asks them what they do, they say their life is boring, and then they get out of the conversation. They know this isn't good. They also know that they should get better at networking. However, they are nervous and do not know how to begin or why it is worth it. Describe how you feel about self-promotion and the ability to manage your time when networking. Are there specific formats of networking that are worth more in a short amount of time? If so, explain your answer. For your reply to your students, to other students, come up with an alternative networking method that you think may be more effective, or a more effective way of performing the format that your peer suggested. For your citation, you might research articles that discuss professional design organizations and networking events for designers. You can also find articles from experts on creating and maintaining a professional network. When you respond to each other, don't just agree. Show other perspectives, be substantial and respectful in your post. Don't forget to, I've had some of you forget citations in there to support your perspective, so make sure you're adding that in there. I started the discussion, so I began with, network, network, network. It's all about networking. So I'll go through here. Well, mostly, I always tell my students that the first step in networking is to network with each other. I don't know how many times a job or opportunity has popped up from alumni that I went to school with. That's one of the first things that you can do now to start networking. So describe how you feel about self-promotion and the ability to manage your time when networking. Are there specific formats of networking that are worth more in a shorter amount of time? Explain your answer. So there might be a technique that you know that works for you, or something that you thought of that you haven't tried yet. So in my opinion, self-promotion is key to opening new doors and can be very helpful in other ways other than getting a job or a project. It could be getting discounts on external services. If you have a freelance business, such as printing paper, for example, if you network with certain printer reps, they can give you some really good deals. I've had printers actually donate for certain organizations that I've worked with that, the budget was really low, but they decided, hey, as long as you put our printer logo on there, we'll donate the printing. So there could be things like that that come up. So can you come up with alternative networking methods that you think may be more effective? We're all creative thinkers. Let's have fun with this. So, dig into this, look up other networking sites, and maybe read some articles that you could use for ideas and inspiration for you to explain to this person how you would go about creating alternative networking. Yep, it's how you sell yourself as an artist and designer. And I think this is one of the harder parts for a designer, because we are visual people. Some of us, we're communicators too. But I think sometimes we think, oh, well, I'll just be working on a computer and that's all I'll be doing. Well, that's not the case. When you go out and get a job, you have to be the face for your work. You have to communicate and be confident and make those networking connections with people, or else, you might not get as many doors opened up. Yep, you're a walking advertisement for yourself. Exactly, that's perfect. So not only do you have to make sure that your portfolio looks really tight and finished and polished, but you as well, you kind of have to sell yourself too. And making those connections is super important. It's unbelievable. You could have the best portfolio and no networking abilities, and really have a hard time maybe finding a good, happy job that you enjoy doing, because and then there could be somebody who has a less than nice portfolio, but they're really good at networking and they have this top job that you would have loved to have, but they know the people they met them, say at a career fair, and they're local to you, and you're like, how did they get that job? So, it's key. It's a key thing to know and to get started, and especially being an online designer. Yep, that's okay. Everybody, I think though, if you push yourself and do it, even though you have that fear and anxiety, once you do it, it makes you more confident. That takes the fear out of it, I think. Makes you more confident about yourself. And I think that's just one of the things that when you graduate and you get experience, once you get a job and actually gain that experience, you'll get better and better at it. Yep. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, share tips with each other. How do you push through that anxiety? How do you gain that confidence? What are those techniques? So just thinking about that. So how do you plan on networking when you're in school and once you graduate? Talk about that too. Yeah, everybody could use tips for sure. Okay, so, all right, any questions about the discussion that we're doing here? There we go. She just gave her email. Okay, let's go on to discussion 2. We're moving right along here, people. This is great. There you go, networking. You guys are networking right now. I'm so proud. That's great. So you keep those relationships active. You guys can all connect with each other on LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn page, Behance, you know, sync up, Facebook, start really making those connections now because you just never know with each other. Okay, so time management. We're going to be talking about time management, always important, right? We should be doing that, working on that now. And so we're going to be talking about that. Go ahead and read through the career relevancy and the background information. I won't bore you with reading all that stuff. There's actually a little video in here too. It's just like a 9-minute video. Very good video. I think I posted this actually in the announcement. So it talks about to manage. Oh, no, this is the same guy, but it's a different video. So definitely he talks about project management. Good. Okay, so for this discussion, imagine that you met a new student while attending design club. She tells you she is having trouble meeting school project deadlines and wants to know if you have any secrets about how you complete projects on time. Consider some time management skills that have helped you with your job and school, and think about the methods you've developed and maintained to help you achieve your goals in an efficient manner. What do you consider to be a time management strategy that every student should follow, and what is the best way to develop that skill? For your reply post, consider time management strategies that may sound better than they actually are. So maybe there's a strategy out there that everybody talks about, but you may have tried it and it may have not worked, and maybe consider something different. Are there any time management ideas you have tried to implement and found out later that they took up more time than they were worth, and what made you realize this? So for your citation, you might research articles that discuss time management strategy successes and failures. You can also find articles from experts on creating and maintaining time management plans while working on a project. Because it's funny because you could be working on something that is meant to be speedy and to help with time management, but then it could also heed your process. It could work the opposite way. So if that's the case with anything that you've tried, definitely share that with us, or what you believe would maybe not be as effective. Okay, so I started this post off here. I just said, in this discussion, you are to consider some time management skills that have helped you with your job and school, and think about the methods you've developed and maintained to help you achieve your goals in an efficient manner. You may have a job now that you're working in and it's not design related that you can also speak of in regards to time management. What do you consider to be a time management strategy that every student should follow, and what is the best way to develop that skill? When I was a student, time management was everything in order to not feel overwhelmed and feel behind. It allowed me to accomplish smaller goals in order to accomplish the bigger ones. Reducing distractions was key for me. I would say working and going to school online at home comes with benefits and some cons, one of which is distractions. Everyone works differently, so find that quiet space in order to focus when trying to complete your tasks. What else do you do to help? So, and I think, it's funny when you work at home or when you're an online student, and I know you guys could probably definitely agree with this. I think certain people don't realize that you're actually working. They think that you're just, having fun. Do you ever have somebody do that? When I used to teach in Florida online, I would have my parents stay with me because they were from Pittsburgh, and they would come down every year during the winter, and they would just sit there and be like, oh, like talking to me, and I'm like, I'm working. Yes. I think it's just like one of those things when you work at home, those distractions. And I think honestly, when you work at home, you do more work than you do at an actual office, because you just, I don't know, I think it's because you're there. And maybe, maybe that's, yeah, maybe you end up being distracted by laundry or, you know, walking the dog and doing a million different things. But yeah, I find that I do more work than I do in the office, but there are definitely more distractions. And, you know, I think people just think that you're not working because you're at home. Yes, the dog. Oh, that would be, yes, that would be a distraction, the breakup. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're going through that. You know, life is hard. Life is hard, you know, there's things that pop up unexpectedly all the time. And I'm talking not even relationship wise. It could be apartment wise. It could be housing wise, family. I mean, it's just the number of things. And then you're working at home as a student or actually working. And it's just, sometimes it's hard to get away. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I actually went through a divorce 3 years ago, so I completely understand about that, and it's definitely not fun. It's stressful and a distraction. Yep. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's just, yeah, yeah. But you know what? Sometimes things happen for a reason, and you know, fortunately, I'm actually a lot happier. So hopefully that'll be the case for you guys. But distractions is what was key for me to just, you know, how I dealt with that. And sometimes it's just leaving your space. You know, sometimes I have to just leave and go somewhere where it's quiet, where there's Wi-Fi to get stuff done. So one of those things. Okay, any questions about that? It's pretty self-explanatory. So there could be some things that maybe you try that you're like, oh, you know, I tried this, or I don't think this would be as effective because of whatever, you know, talk about that too. It's always good to see both sides of it. Okay, let me see. We got about 10 more minutes and I am actually going to go over the lecture quiz. I know last week we had a little bit of a, I don't know, it was one of the last answers on the quiz was giving us issues here, but if you did choose that specific answer, I did give you credit for it. So just so that you know, I did change that. So sorry for any confusion. And hold on, I'm going to pull this quiz up here. Hold on. Okay. All right, so let's review some things here. And, you know, these are definitely something to think about when you're doing the quiz. All right, one of which is, and I didn't show this in the beginning because I already started my, let me show you my Photoshop screen here. In Photoshop, and I didn't actually mention this, so let's go over this. There is an option here. The best way, do you guys know the best way to, say if you're looking for tutorials in Photoshop, do you guys know the best way to access those? Does anybody know? Maybe you haven't looked at this yet, so maybe you don't. Okay, so the best way is, oh, let me have some, here we go. Highlighting the tools. Well, that's one way. The best way for tutorials is to click on the Learn button right here. So you should see it right here. Once you click on that Learn button, this little panel will pop up and it'll show project tutorials. Here's tips. So say if you're trying to find something about resizing a layer, you can click on that and take a look at just your tips there. There's fundamental skills. Welcome. We're just wrapping things up here. I'm going over the lecture quiz. Fundamental skills. So I don't know if you guys know about this fix a photo, but these are all in here. So if you're having, you know, if you kind of just want to go over certain things, creating certain effects that you want to take a look at, this is the best way to to pull up the tutorials in Photoshop. So the learn button. Yeah. Another thing I like about the home screen for Adobe Photoshop, and right now I don't know why mine's not showing this, but your home screen, let's see here, I'm at home, and it's not showing it here, but there should be an inspirational quote here. I don't know why I'm not seeing that. But the best part when you do open up, I think it's because I had this open, I'd have to open it up again, about opening Photoshop up, about the home screen, is the inspirational saying that it gives to you. Now, because I don't want to close out of here, but when you do and you go to the home screen, it should show you an inspirational saying. So that's part of what's on your quiz here, just FYI. Okay. As far as the lecture 2, let's go and, oops, let's not share that. Hold on one second here. Let me get rid of Photoshop. Okay. I'm going to give too much away here. Okay. All right, so when we were talking about the reasons for professional networking, I wanted to make sure in that when we were talking about, actually I didn't go over that yet, so I should probably do that. So the top 3 reasons on why you would build a professional network, for some reason I skipped this whenever I was talking about your discussion, would be to learn, find jobs, and get feedback. Okay, so I just have a little quote here talking about time management is the way we decide to utilize our time in order to maximize our productivity and achieving certain long-term goals. So being successful at managing your time, finding out where you spend your time, determine what needs to be completed. This is kind of like a timeline of tasks that you can do. Block out distractions, that's one of mine. Don't procrastinate. I know I do that sometimes when things get too crazy and I have too much to do. So that's why, doing smaller goals for me helps with that, because I'm a perfectionist. Yeah. And most of you, I think, are too. So once you get behind, it really messes you up. So don't procrastinate, one thing at a time, get organized, use calendar reminders, task lists, and learn that it's okay to say no to friends and family. That's a big one too, right? But yes, yep, so easy to do. Trust me, I sometimes and I shouldn't say this because I do like grading, but sometimes it gets so overwhelming that I'm like, oh, I have to vacuum first before I sit and grade. And it's like, okay, I got to really sit down and focus on this. Yep, exactly. But once I get into it, I'm all good. It's just, I have a lot to do. We got to just focus, block out distractions. Okay, so those are the top 3 reasons to actually do building a professional network. So emphasizing that it's for learning, finding jobs, and get feedback. Networking can be very what? Do you think it could be very fun? Scary? It could be scary, right? We just talked about anxieties. It can be intimidating, yes. So networking can be very scary, but like I said before, once you face that fear and gain confidence, you should be a lot better off with that. And I think that is it for your quiz. So those are the things to kind of keep in mind when you're taking the lecture quiz. Don't bother me at all. Yep. Just say no. Just say no sometimes. And I know I am a people pleaser. So for me, that's definitely one of the most challenging things is saying no. But sometimes you just have to in order to keep your sanity and to push forward with completing certain tasks. So just make sure that you know that. It's all about balance. Life is about balance, really. Yep, it's good. So some of you might, you know, really love networking and getting out there, and it doesn't bother you at all, and that's awesome. I think I used to be very intimidated, and it used to be scary for me, interview processes. But once I did them a lot, I was like, hey, I could do this. And I used to like polish my interviewing skills, read books. I used to practice, and I got better and better at it. And then I was more confident myself because I knew what I could do. I was proud of what I've done, but it all is with experience. So don't feel like you're the only person that feels this way. It's scary, but once you push forward, you'll be good. I think it's just one of those things. Yep, interviewing is very stressful. It could be difficult, especially when you really need the job. I mean, how stressful is that? And you're one-on-one with people. It's just, it can be very intimidating. But I think a lot of the times too, the interviewer understands this when you start out as, you know, a beginner. So I think just kind of knowing that, you know, hey, people have to start somewhere. I am, you know, I'm learning. This is a process. Just take a deep breath. You'll be fine. You're not going to die, you know, and once it's over, it's over. Yep, both sides of the table, good. Yeah, so I mean, that's good when you're on both sides of the table, so you kind of get both sides of that. Yeah. And then you feel a little bit more like, oh, I can relate to this person. You know, and we are people. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I've screwed up a lot of things. The key is, you know, learning from those mistakes and just going from there, pushing yourself. You know, I have a lot of nieces and nephews who have anxiety issues, but it's because they're not pushed. So pushing yourself, getting yourself, making those mistakes, learning from them, gaining the confidence, that's key. Yep, interviewing is just as, oh, being the interviewer. Yeah, it could be. So yeah, see, you don't think about that, the other side of it. Rather interview someone. Could be stressful. I've never really interviewed anybody before, so that's kind of interesting. But I've definitely been interviewed. So thinking about that, that's actually very interesting that you brought that up though, Jeff. Okay. It is a strange process, yep. But, oh, there you go. How to hire and fire. Yeah, that could be very stressful, especially when you know the people involved. Oh yeah. Yep. But yeah, so all right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming in. I'm going to wrap this up. We're at the quit mark here. So I know some of you kind of logged in a little late, and that's fine. The recording should be up, and within 20 minutes, you can review what you missed. Well, thank you guys. You guys have been great. Enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah, thank you guys. I look forward to, I think I'm caught up on grading as far as my 2 sections for this class, but I look forward to anybody who needs to submit their work for the past 2 weeks, please do so now. We're getting to the end here. If you have any questions, let me know. There's my contact information. I will be on the discussion boards too, so and posting announcements. So just kind of keep an eye on all that. Yeah, since the week 1. That's funny. Uh-oh, time management, right? You gotta say no to some people. All right, guys. Well, you have a wonderful day, and I'll be talking to you soon. And I'll see you on the boards. Have a good one. Oh yeah, those babies and dogs, they'll get you. All right, guys, talk to you soon.